Hey everyone, so in October of 2021, I made a pretty long video about how much I love Tower Records in Shibuya, but a lot's changed since then, so I thought I would come back and record some new footage here to show you what's new. And remember, no music, no life. I'm walking in right now for the 30th anniversary of the store. It's crazy to think that it's been open so long that for the majority of its existence, the American version's been defunct. But we're just going to take a quick tour first here through the very first floor. The first floor is always changing at Tower Records. It's where they keep the new releases, obviously, and things that might get tourist attention. Neat displays, big things for new artists, stuff like that. To be honest, a lot of it is things I really don't understand, and before I could even find out what it is, it's gone because they cycle stuff through here pretty quickly. One thing that's usually here, though, is this display. This is for Nujabes. He was a Japanese hip-hop producer who was pretty influential in the lo-fi hip-hop scene until he tragically died young. You see these albums all over Tower Records, including on the first floor here. They really want you to pick those up. Next to him, of course, is Hikaru Utada for her new release for her tour. She's popular overseas too, so they usually have stuff for her on the first floor. Then around the corner, you'll see some more stuff that's popular for tourists. More Nujabes, Roots of Lo-Fi Hip Hop, one of the most famous albums in Japan. Get some CDs there. And then Lady Gaga. This is still there, but they've already moved this like a week after I came here. This is for her upcoming tour. She's coming to Japan in January. They already announced the tour. I got tickets. You can see these cool oversized editions. It's a Japanese exclusive. They don't have any new songs, but they have exclusive artwork. Here's one for Art Pop, and before you ask, no, it does not have the song of R. Kelly either. They took it off that version too. So, sorry if you really wanted that. Next, they have a copy of Brat, the Japanese version with the katakana print. I like that. I think that's fun. Then Miley Cyrus, Something Beautiful. That's already long gone. I don't think that album really took off the way she wanted to, which is a shame because I liked it. You can get the Japanese version, vinyl version, import American version there. Over here, some more recommends. That's what Tower Records calls the recommendations. No one ever taught them the word recommendation. They say it's recommended or recommends. And here you go. We are 2 minutes in the video, and we got Maria Takeuchi. You're going to see a lot more city pop. Tower Records has drastically expanded the city pop section. There's Sheena Ringo. She's not city pop, but I recommend her. Some more new and upcoming artists. Then over here we have Studio Ghibli. If you're going to put stuff on the first floor to attract tourists, you're going to have Studio Ghibli. There's a good selection of CDs there for Mononoke Hime, Totoro, Kiki, all that stuff. And if you're thinking, hey, where's the vinyl? I got good news. It's right over here. They also have a lot of vinyl for the Ghibli films here. This is not all of it. There's even more Ghibli associated vinyl on another floor, which we'll get to in a little bit. Here's some more recommends. Right now, they're pushing some manga with kind of associated CDs. They had some Slam Dunk CDs, Naruto, One Piece, Vigilante, things like that. Here's a little quick taste of their game music. There's much more of that on another floor, as well as some other new releases. I think over here is some slightly more edgy rock releases, and Arashi. Arashi's a pretty big band here. I am, to be honest, not a very big fan. And then some more vinyl. Pretty soon we're going to go upstairs, but before I do that, here's a few more things. We got some, the Tower Records memorabilia. You want your keychains, your lanyards, your whatevers, you can get that here. And then over here, I want to show you, this is the display for Tatsuya Yamashita's 50th anniversary Melodies release. And I want to show off some prices here. So there's the vinyl. It's a brand new vinyl. It's kind of hard to see in the photo, but it is 4,400 yen, 4,400 yen. They also have it on CD. The CD is half the price. The CD is 2,200 yen. Now, what surprised me is they have it on a brand new cassette tape, and that is 3,410 yen. You do what you want with your money. I would not spend that much money on a cassette tape. That's new. Over here's an Oasis display. Oasis is coming to Japan soon with their world tour. Japanese people are stoked. I know the joke is that Japanese people love Mr. Big, but they really love Oasis, like everywhere else in the world. They have a listening station here to check out the greatest hits if you haven't heard it. Very expensive here in Japan, 18,000 yen. I like this display that shows off the oversized Japanese edition with what's inside. I think that's a nice touch to attract buyers. Over here, you got some K-pop. I don't know much about that. I'm not gonna bash K-pop here, but you're not gonna hear me talk much about it either. So pretty soon we're gonna head up to the other floors because this is a massive store. Like I said, it has 8 floors of music. And here are the elevators. You should take the elevators to the top and work your way down. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start up on classical on the 8th floor, then go down to the 7th floor, which has rock, heavy metal, basically everything on CD that's not J-pop. Below that, on the 6th floor, is Tower Vinyl. That's all vinyl, both foreign and domestic. They have that there, new and used. Then down below in the 5th floor, that is K-pop and an event space. Not a floor I frequent very often. The 4th floor has anime, VTubers, game music, Vocaloids, kind of stuff like that. Kind of not J-pop, Japanese. J-pop, J-indie, J-hip-hop, city pop. That's newly added there, is on the 3rd floor. The 2nd floor is a cafe and an event space, and then back down to the 1st floor, which has the new releases and, as I said before, the recommends. But let's start up on the 10th floor at Tower Classical. Tower Classical is a nice place. It's smaller than the other floors, but it has what you're looking for. They have some vinyl here, not too much. I think a lot of classical fans prefer CDs because, a properly mastered CD is going to sound better than a properly mastered vinyl. It just has more dynamic range and stuff. But they got a few things here. Only new, no used classical vinyl on the classical floor. Then next to the classical records, you got the CDs. Over here, you have the big names, the Schumann, the Ravel, the Schubert, all those guys with the nice little portraits. I like the portraits that have the years. So you can get the big guns right off the bat. If you want some Ravel and you won't need to know when he passed away, you can get your Listomania on with some Liszt. And then go on the back over here. This is the classical used section, which in Nihongo is classic chu-uko. That's what those kanji are. That's chu-uko, means second-hand or used. A lot of classical used CDs here. Used CDs are something that's relatively new to Tower Records. They didn't have these here when I did my video a few years back. I think they just started selling classical CDs, I think a year ago, and I don't know how long they've been in the classical floor. I keep seeing them added more and more throughout the store as I come and visit. Pretty fair prices here. I see the box sets are a little pricey, but a lot of those ones are a good, fair price if you're looking for some cheap used music. Then on this back wall here, we have J Classical, so that's classical music performed by, obviously, Japanese performers. That goes along this whole wall here. Lots of big selects in there for that. I think that's a pretty big market here. Then over here, you'll see in a second, we have the SACD collection. This whole shelf is nothing but super audio CDs. At one point, Tower Records was bragging that they had the largest collection of classical SACDs in the world. I bet that's probably still true. Then over here you have new releases for different genres and series. You got your Tower Records originals, your symphony and orchestral. One thing I like here is that they break it up. A lot of people, when they think of classical, they just think of quote-unquote classical, but that's a whole type of music. There's piano, there's opera, there's vocal, there's early music, there's chamber music, there's Japanese classical, there's contemporary, new classical, series of classical musics. All, you name it, they got it here, all divided and really easy to look through subgenres that make browsing much easier for casual fans like me. In the back, they have the classical crossover, which is an interesting section because this is where you can find some good soundtracks and other strange stuff. There's some Tomita. Tomita was a Japanese composer who combined classical music with electronic instrumentation, kind of like Wendy Carlos did. And then there's some musical stuff here. You want Wicked with the dope little hand-drawn display. You got your Les Mis, your Phantom back there, West Side Story. You know what's Japan? It's Sister Act. You know what Japan loves? Japan loves freaking Sister Act. Oklahoma. Stranger Things. I was surprised to see that here. Decent enough price, I guess, but I wouldn't expect that in the classical section. You got your contemporary music, the ultimate minimal. I just found that funny. It's the ultimate of minimal. And then some other sections here. I really like these cards, especially when they have English. They really show you the importance of what you're looking at. And then there's, of course, Sakamoto Riichi, who passed away a few years back, and they let you know you can definitely find more of him on other floors. This is more of his avant-garde, contemporary, classical, experimental stuff. And then there's Joe Hiyashi. He does the music for most of the Ghibli films. As you can tell, this absolutely adorable card. I want to steal that. But I won't. Instead, we'll leave this floor because I really don't know what else to talk about on the classical floor. Let's go down to the 7th floor. This is my main floor. This is where you can find new and used CDs. I spend a lot of time here because I still buy CDs. First, we're going to start over in that corner at the Pied Piper House. This is kind of a store within a store that focuses on, I guess, the best way to describe it would be influences of city pop and city pop adjacent music. Here you see a big display for a recent re-release of a classic Japanese album that was a big influence on city pop, and of course the more Tatsuro Yamashita. But here's the good stuff. This is where you find, if you're looking for the stuff that city pop musicians like, come here and buy some Nielsen Smielsen, buy some Leslie Gore, and then check out their super well-defined subgenres. You want some West Coast music? Here you go. And by West Coast, I don't mean, Dre. I mean Ned Doheny. I don't know who Ned Doheny is, but I know who Linda Ronstadt is. There she is. Other ones here, you got New Orleans, of course. That's going to have Dr. John. Many other subgenres here. Soul music, Hawaiian Island music, girl pop, soft rock, because if, Dr. John isn't your thing. Blue-Eyed Soul, AOR, pop vocal. Back up, who's a pop vocal? You want some Captain Tennille? Now you know where to get it, baby. Female singer-songwriters, Carole King section, a Wall of Sound section, a Beach Boys section. Really just, you can kind of see the vibe they're going for here, right? It's post-Beatles mostly, but it's not mainstream, but it's not mainstream. It's a really unique combination. To be honest, though, I don't know what NRBQ is doing there. Over on this side, though, we have Japanese artists. That's Taiko Inuki, YMO, my favorite Japanese band, and Mora Sakamoto, along with other people from YMO. Up top here, you'll get a good selection of Takahashi Yukihiro, who's my favorite member of YMO. Wild and Moody, that third record, and the first one, Murdered by the Music. Those are fantastic synth pop records. Then over here, more big names in Japanese music, of course. More Yamashita. And down in the corner there, we got Hosono Hiromi with his big first album there, the big breakthrough album, Tropical Dandy, and Hosono House with more below there. Here is the main section of the store. These big things you see at the front here, that's where they put new releases or other notable releases they want to promote or recommend to people. It's usually mostly Western music. Occasionally, like this one here, you get some Japanese, but it's probably 90% Western music. Like over behind him here, we have the latest from the Wu-Tang Clan. This is the Wu-Tang's Black Samson, that collaboration with, I think, the Mathematics. Then over around the corner, we had some Stones Throw. Then behind him, The Weeknd, Hurry Up Tomorrow, Complete Edition, the most listened to singer on Earth. I guess that's true. Streaming matters, I guess. Avicii, I think this best album is relatively new. They usually have an Avicii display out here. Someone here really likes Avicii. Then what else do we have around the corner here? Damiano David from Maneskin. That song last summer was huge here. You're very lucky you haven't heard it. It is not one of his strongest. Then had a Sly Stone Memoriam. He had just passed away like a day before I came here. They already had this out. That kanji up there, that says Suito, which means in memoriam. So good selection of his stuff there. And then there's some D'Angelo, because if you like Sly Stone, you probably like him. Turnstile, great band. Kanye West. Look, if you want to buy a Kanye West album in 2025, that's your prerogative. I don't feel the need to promote it. I don't feel the need to call him the genius closest to God. But hey, that's just me. This whole wall here, though, has pretty major artists: Radiohead, Green Day, Oasis. They had Oasis up here for a long time, even before they announced the reunion tours. So that goes to show you, Japan really likes Oasis. And they really like Charlie XCX. This album's been on display since it came out. It must have done pretty well here. Linkin Park's From Zero, still on display here. Again, popular in Japan. Pulp's new album just came out when I was there. They had the Japanese version, the American version, and the LP, and then recommending stuff like Primal Scream, because if you're buying Pulp in 2025, you'd probably like Primal Scream. And here's a good display for Haim's new album, I Quit, and I want to go in detail here. So we have two different CDs. We have the domestic and the foreign. First down here is the foreign, the American European one. That is 3,000 490 yen. Above that is the Japanese version, which has the Obi, that is 3,300 yen, but it has no extra tracks. It is the exact same album, so in that case, it's better to buy the Japanese version. The indie exclusive vinyl is 7,090 yen. Maybe don't buy that in Japan if you're a tourist. Here is the Yogaku section with Taylor Swift. Yogaku is a Japanese for Western music, but usually this Yogaku global artist section is just where you see the biggest artists in the world. Sabrina Carpenter, Miley Cyrus, Alex Warren, Billie Eilish. And here's a cool thing about the Billie album. The Japan edition has extra stuff on it, and they write down in English what it has. That's pretty cool of them. Then next to that is this wall here that has a lot of rock music, both kind of indie and bigger artists. I discover a lot of artists by going to the listening stations here. I bought that Sextile album from listening to it here. And they have other more indie, electronic, or, I guess like Pitchfork adjacent, college rock type stuff like Bon Iver, stuff like that. But also the big names. Rolling Stones are down over here. Next to him is Pink Floyd, Live at Pompeii. I think I saw some Motorhead maybe. Van Morrison's latest album. Next to that, Sting's 3.0 live album. Fleetwood Mac. The boomer stuff, which I'm not knocking. I own releases by most of these artists. And then finally in that last one there, though, what really caught my eye was the Peter Murphy. And then below that, Faust. And then below that, we had 2 albums by Pete Shelley. These are re-releases of Pete Shelley's XL1, which is a fantastic record. I believe that's the one that has Telephone Operator. Yes, it is. I bought this because I didn't have this on a CD. I only had it on vinyl alongside the one next to it, Homo Sapien. I think that is Pete Shelley's debut. Or regardless if it's his first or second, it's his best record that has the title track, which is an all-time LGBT banger. After I finished filming, I picked both of those up. And then the Nightfly. Japan loves Donald Flagen's The Nightfly. Do not ask me why. Some other displays here. We have one from Model Actress, and this shows you again. They'll have the big display for the big new artists, and then below that, they couple other CDs you might like if you like Model Actress, which is something I really like. So again, here's Arcade Fire. They put that with Smashing Pumpkins, because I guess they figure if you like Arcade Fire, you're probably over 30. And if you might notice also, with the Smashing Pumpkins, they had a date up there. We're going to go back up there and check that out. They're coming to Japan. And so it has the date they're coming. That's really useful for me. Here's one for the Foo Fighters. Here's one for My Bloody Valentine, for Muse. Oh, and by the way, here's Mr. Big. Mr. Big, not as big in Japan anymore, but they still have quite a few CDs. But I use those displays often to find out when bands are coming here. Here's a big display for Mariah Carey's Emancipation of Mimi, the 20th anniversary edition. This is a 2-disc deluxe version that's only in Japan, although I think almost all the songs on a second disc were also on the US version. But the packaging's different, so that's kind of cool. Next to that, we got Kendrick Lamar. No special edition for Kendrick Lamar's GNX here. It's just a great album everywhere, I guess, so, why add to it? Over here we have Gracie Bowers. He's kind of a new bluesy guitar player. We got Sparks' latest in the 57-year career. New Doobie Brothers get a big display here. And then the next day when I came back, Gracie was gone and replaced with Brian Wilson because he had just passed away. Big display for him. This got bigger. When I went back later without my camera, there was an even bigger display for him. Rest in peace, Brian Wilson. Over here, Stereolab's latest on import vinyl and CD. And then, hey, guess what? More Taylor Swift. Do you like Taylor Swift? Guess who else likes Taylor Swift? Japan likes Taylor Swift. But I'm going to move in now to the general area here. This is where, this general pop rock releases. Ooh, Pearl Jam. This is the Blu-ray edition of Pearl Jam's Binaural. I ended up buying this. But the point here I want to show is that now they've changed a bit. Before, they used to separate things like prog rock and regular rock into separate ones, and now it's all kind of lumped together. So you end up getting Queen, Radiohead, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and the latest re-release from Robert Fripp all on the same shelf, side by side. Do they still have prog rock? Well, yes, they do, but it's just mixing together, and that's kind of frustrating for me. Another thing that's frustrating for me at Tower is they still carry these bootlegs, these Alive, these are bootleg series. It's usually just radio recordings or sometimes fan recordings. It's a gray market here in Japan, but apparently it's legal enough for them to carry it. Moving on through a bit more through the pop and rock section, you can kind of get a good idea of what they sell. You know, you're going to see, again, the big names on top and everything else on bottom. They have a really good selection of back catalog stuff. It's not just new releases. Like, hey, if you want to go to Japan and buy some Japan, you can. If you don't, go to metal. Here's the metal section. This is the only rock section in this floor that has its own little area. All the other rock genres are mixed in, but metal has its own corner of the store, which I really appreciate because I've really gotten into metal the past few years. I come here a lot to check out new releases and other recommendations. They have a big hard rock, heavy metal new release display there. And then the rest of this wall is all metal, all new releases and the catalog mixed together, t-shirt. And then back here, even more metal. And then in the back wall, they separate other genres like grindcore, metalcore, gent, stuff like that. I don't know why it's under the Dream Theater poster back there, but it is. And that's a big display for a new album by Bad Omens. This is the Japanese edition that has an extra CD on SHM CD. And then there's that Dream Theater display, which I found kind of funny. Some more other bands here, Under Oath. I think that's Coffin Feeder, which is a great name for a band that I probably wouldn't like. And then Magnolia Park. You know it's Japan again. Here's Billy Sheenan's autograph and Paul Gilbert from Mr. Big. Like, again, they're not as big as they used to be in Japan, but they're still pretty big. And some other Japanese guitar players' autographs. Let's move into jazz. Now, a lot's changed in the past 3 years since my last video. One thing that has not changed, I still don't know much about jazz. So, enjoy this display of jazz. I'm sorry I can't tell you more about it. I don't know if it's a good selection. It's a big selection. The one thing I will say is that just like before, when it comes to big artists like Bill Evans or Miles Davis, which we'll get to in a minute, they still have the individual placards for each album because a lot of their albums get re-released, so you can see here album names and then different versions of each album. And I think that's really convenient if you're a completist like me. Not for jazz, of course. But here's Japanese jazz. I do know a bit more about Japanese jazz thanks to the internet, and I like Japanese jazz in moderation. I love that album, A Cat by Hiroshi Suzuki. The one next to it by, I forgot his name, that's good too. But over here we have Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia, big on the YouTube. If you're looking for Cassiopeia in Tower Records, go to the jazz section. And other places, you'll see it again. There's some Lupin the Third soundtracks, and then some Hiromi Urehara as well. A lot of big names in Japanese jazz kind of breaking through into Western audiences these days. The Japanese jazz section, as you can see, it's a pretty big one. I was surprised just how much there was. Back at the front, we have soul classics. That's obviously classics of soul. You get your Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross, Earth, Wind & Fire, stuff like that. An entire two-space display from Michael Jackson, and then next to him is the hip-hop section, which is sadly not that big. Tons of soul still. Behind that, we had Aretha Franklin, Beyonce, Bruno Mars, and a lot of deep cuts down there. I'm always looking for Pointer Sisters. They never have Pointer Sisters. I don't get it. They have Chic, though, so I guess that's good. Earth, Wind & Fire, all the big names in soul music. Of course, they have a gigantic Prince section. This got really big after he passed away. It never got smaller. People love Prince. Sade, Sly Stone again, a little memorial for him, all kinds of great soul music, good selection. Less so for electronic music. They have an electronic section, but it's just kind of one little wall, and it's mostly club music and EDM. You can see, got the big stuff like Daft Punk, Guetta, newer EDM artists that I don't know anything about, but I do like going here because it does this. They do have things like healing music and Japanese ambient. I love Japanese ambient. Inoyama Land is fantastic. It's a great record. That green one there, you should buy it. And then regular ambient, like the latest Brian Eno releases and other artists that are similar. Also some avant-garde. I see some Japanese artists there mixed in with the American and European ones. So good selection there. Behind the ambient, they had world music. And this is all kinds of stuff that's not, if it's not European, if it's not British, mainstream European or American or Japanese, it's here. So Spanish, other Asian countries, other European countries, Eastern European, reggae. They have a reggae section, and you'd be surprised how many people in Japan like reggae. And another part, we had the blues and country. Blues and country, not so big in Japan. This is all of it. That's all the blues, all the country, and to be honest, all the folk. If you look closely in here, you'll see that they have the Kingston Trio mixed in with country artists like Loretta Lynn. Not necessarily agree with that, but what are you going to do? I don't think they really care that much. Here's a big display on like guitar music. That wall changes often of different promotions and recommendations. Here's the movie section. If you don't live in Japan, there's really no reason to come over here because Japanese releases aren't going to have subtitles and Western releases are going to be expensive. Here's a copy of Beetlejuice. It is 8,580 yen. If you're American, buy that in America. Whatever country you're from, it's probably cheaper in your country. Japanese movies are expensive. Moving past the movies, we have movie soundtracks. This section's kind of gone downhill recently. When they expanded the vinyl, this got cut, and which is a bummer. If you look at my old video, the soundtrack section was huge with a lot of features on really weird and bizarre soundtracks. Now it's just this wall. To be honest, I don't buy soundtracks here very often anymore. One new thing that is interesting, though, is this Shibuya Recommend Asian Music, which has, I guess, non-world music, non-Japanese Asian music. So I guess pop music from other countries. You got a Thailand section here. I think there was an Indonesian one, different Chinese markets. There was a South Korean and Canto pop. Really cool. I'm glad they're doing this. You know, it appeals to tourists and people in the country who want to branch out to other Asian countries. Nice to see Canto pop. You don't see Canto pop anymore. Although I will definitely not be buying a Jackie Chan record in 2025. One more tribute to Nujabes. Again, they really like him here. You will see Nujabes tributes on most floors. And then next to that was a cool little section on these lo-fi records that were kind of inspired by Nujabes. That Tower Records one is exclusive to that store. You can't get it anywhere else. It's also really good, so I recommend it. A lot of these are good. I own a lot of those, like the little anime girl, lo-fi, hip-hop, city pop stuff. And here's the used section. This is also relatively new. Tower didn't sell used CDs until very recently. And I think the prices are pretty fair. I skimmed these a bit. Here's a deluxe edition of Allman Brothers album, which is 2 CD set. That's out of print, so that goes for a bit. That's 2,200 yen. But other ones were cheaper. Here's an Annie Lennox CD. The Annie Lennox one, Annie Lennox's Bear, that was, 330 yen. That's a fair price. And, actually cheaper than you could get it in an American store. Some Chicago, I don't know which one that is, Chicago number 55,000, whatever, 440 yen. Good prices on the used CDs, and again, Elton John's Love Songs, that is only 660 yen. So yeah, good prices here. I do buy used CDs here on occasion. They sometimes get some weird stuff, so it's a nice selection. Small, but covers a lot. But that's enough of the CDs. Let's go down to what I'm sure most of you are here for, the vinyl floor. Let's take the Oasis elevator. I love the elevators here because they always have the No Music, No Life posters on top and then different art on the side. Right now, of course, Japan is in full Oasis mode, so there is a lot of Oasis art. This is actually gone. I went back the following week and they had taken it down and replaced it with, I think now it's still just a blank wall. But anyway, this is the vinyl floor. But before we see vinyl, let's see Sparks. Hi, Sparks. I guess they were just recently in the store and did some autographs. I did not see them when they were in Japan, and this display is sadly gone now. But I'm glad that they, are getting some recognition here. Sparks is a fantastic band. But here is the vinyl floor. As you can see, it is absolutely huge. This half I'm on now, this is all used vinyl. And then the other half is all new. With some other stuff here, some tapes and stuff, which we'll get to in a minute. Let's breeze through some of the selections here. Here's the rock and pop section. And right at the front, when you first come into the store, those first two stacks, those are the new arrivals, which they separate by foreign and domestic. Let's take a look at domestic, so for you foreign, Japanese pressings. Let's kind of skim through here so you can see what they got and what they're asking for. I think their prices are fair. You can, if I'm going too fast, you can freeze frame them. But yeah, Led Zeppelin's going to be expensive. The Smiths are going to be expensive. Freeze, not going to be expensive. They do a good job of pricing things fairly. You can trust the conditions here. They're usually going to be in really good condition. Japanese people tend to take care of their vinyl. If you see a B, it's going to be like a US, like A minus. Conditions are really good. Look at the Beatles here. Beatles are another artist where they separate it by album. So here's Revolver. One copy is 11,000 yen. This copy is 16,500 yen. 49,500 yen. UK original. 44,000. 27,500. 49,500. I don't know the differences between those, but my point is, no matter what your budget, if you want a copy of Revolver in Japan, you can get one here. Let's look at some other stuff here. Madonna? No, Manfred Mann. I love Manfred Mann. Angel Chasten's a great album. That's a fair price for it. Here's some Madonna. I have that one with the Obi. Then over here we have some Pink Floyd. Let's take a look and see about Dark Side, right? Because that's another big one everyone always wants. And now 1,000 presses of Dark Side. So there's a UK original with the poster, very expensive. Down here you get some cheaper ones, I believe, 28,600 yen, 18,700 yen, 23,500 yen, 19,800 yen, 3,300, finally a cheap one, and 13,200, 16,500. Dark Side of the Moon can go for a wide variety of prices depending on the version. My suggestion is when you come here and if you're looking for something like that, keep your smartphone out with Discogs open. Here's the prog section. Unlike the CDs, they separate the prog. Thank God. Let's look at Hawkwind. You know who's great? Hawkwind. I'm sure I'm alienating like 95% of my viewers right now, but I love Hawkwind. I own all these albums on CD, however, and I don't need them on vinyl. But if you like some good space rock bullshit, check out Hawkwind. That last album there, Let Me plays on that. So, and you know, Motorhead is from a Hawkwind song. Anyway, there's Gong. Not a lot of Gong. There's some David Allen solo, and then some post-David Allen Gong. That's too bad. Let's see what's in the new arrivals at Prague, and then you can get a good idea of these prices too. Prague is pretty popular among record buyers in Japan. I think because record buyers here skew, let's be honest, they skew old straight male, and old straight men tend to like Prague. I'm an slightly old gay man, and I love Prague, but really good selection. I didn't get into Prague until I moved to Japan, simply because they have so many Prague records and so many Prague stores. It's really easy to find good stuff. Hey, Gong, woohoo! And Duncan McKay, that album rules. Buy it on vinyl, don't buy it on CD, because the CD version is compressed to hell, and I think it's a really bad vinyl transfer. But anyway, let's move on from Prague, or no one will be watching this video. Over here we have heavy metal. I think that's probably a bigger audience for me here. Good metal selection, smaller than I would like, but still fantastic stuff here. Def Leppard's Greatest Hits, Ace of Spades, Metallica's Ride the Lightning, very expensive. Def Leppard Slang at 25,300, which makes sense because that is like mid-90s hair metal, which no one was buying on vinyl. And then we have here Iron Maiden, Thin Lizzy, you know, your heavy metal hard rock standard. Again, at pretty good prices, although this can get a little pricey because metal fans are crazy, and I guess they have disposable income. But really good selection of all kinds of heavy metal here. Let's look at Sabbath. Rest in peace, Ozzy. This was recorded before Ozzy passed away. Lots of copies of Sabbath here, some expensive ones. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath was pretty pricey. Paranoid, incredibly pricey. Again, you can freeze frame and look at these and see the variety of prices. That Mob Rules, very expensive. And it really varies based on pressing, condition, all, you know, the usual stuff. Moving over, another Brian Wilson tribute. As I said, he had passed away right before I came here to record that day. And then over here behind the Lady Gaga, we have your punk rock section. Not too substantial, but some decent stuff here. I'm not the world's foremost expert on punk music, especially hardcore stuff. I am very basic B. Punk rocker like The Clash and the Ramones and stuff like that. Sex Pistols, obviously. So I'm going to skim through here. You can freeze frame to see what you like. I'll be honest, his Ramones, I know who the Ramones are, obviously. I own all of these albums, and you can see they can get, again, pretty expensive. But once we leave the Ramones, Sex Pistols, and Clash, and a few of the big guns, I am very punk ignorant. But here are the Dickies. Other bands, I have no idea who they are. More Dickies, I guess. And you can look at the prices here and see if you think they are fair or reasonable. Again, I am out of my element, and I'm not going to research every single record I look at while recording this video, or we would be here for a very long time. Or I would be researching this voiceover for a very long time. One thing I do know, though, is new wave and post-punk. As we leave the 70s and get more into the 80s and 90s, it's more my scene. Here's the post-punk section. I really appreciate that Tower separates their records, the rock records, from classic rock to punk to post-punk here, and then moving on in a minute to others. Let's look at some Talking Heads, some very expensive Talking Heads records, and some not too pricey ones, but as you can imagine, they're usually in demand, and you can find a lot of true stories. You can't find so much of the 70s output, but you know, anything before Field Music, good luck sometimes. And now alternative and 90s. Now, this is my area, and if you don't know, alternative and/or 90s vinyl can get very pricey because in the 90s, nobody bought vinyl, but they were still making it. So as you see, Some of these go for quite a bit of money. Here's a STP for what, 22,000 yen. Another STP over 40,000 yen. Lots of this era can get up there. REM's a little more affordable, but REM is a high demand band, so their albums are gonna command more money even in Japan. Of course, one band popular everywhere, Nirvana. Here is a German original pressing of Nevermind for 22,000 yen. When you look for Nevermind, you can see all kinds of pressings, ranging, of course, from very cheap to incredibly expensive. That one's honestly kind of in the middle. Some Mudhoney. I'm not checking Maroon 5. Sorry. You know who's not popular in Japan? Pearl Jam. I never find Pearl Jam vinyl here. It makes me sad. Anyway, let's move on to some other genres. So here we have soul and rare groove, but it's also some techno. Not too much to look at here because these are mostly 12-inch singles, I think, and not exactly the most visually arresting format to skim through. If you're really interested, again, you can pause and freeze frame. And now we're going to be moving into more soul stuff. Here's a good rare Japanese pressing of Betty Davis's album. That's a great record. Let's browse through these new arrivals. Lots of stuff. Mostly, I think, from the 70s and 80s. You saw some Jennifer Holliday, some Shannon. Discharge. That Discharge album is fantastic. Good variety of prices here, too. Some affordable records here and some pricey ones. In a second, though, we're going to get into the extremely pricey section. This is premium soul. Now, I am not a soul expert. I don't know what I'm looking at. I just know it's very expensive, so I was moving very slowly. You can, again, as always, freeze frame, look and see what they are. But if you're looking for high-end, hard-to-find soul, you can find it here. Dolomite. Yeah, Dolomite. I knew Dolomite. Out of all the records in that section, I think the only one I knew was Dolomite. But I do know Prince. I love me some Prince. Japan loves Prince. Everyone loves Prince. Everyone loves Prince so much that there weren't many Prince records here. At least nothing that rare. Just Love Sexy, Graffiti Bridge. This album that's not Prince in the wrong section. Some 1999, Sign of the Times. There was one copy of Rainbow Bridge, but other than that and this Japanese pressing of Love Sexy, nothing too crazy there. And no singles. Usually I see Prince singles. Some more Sly, again, because he had just passed away. And some more Prince. How much of that gold? That gold experience, quite expensive. Let's move on to hip-hop. Hip-hop is somewhat, a Western hip-hop. You do find it here, but the hip-hop sections are notably smaller than the rocks and funk, soul, and jazz sections. I can skim through here. And I'm gonna be honest, I am a 45-year-old white man living in Japan. To me, when I look through the hip-hop section, finding a copy of the Trespass soundtrack or the New Jersey Drive soundtracks, those are scores. I am not a hip-hop aficionado. I do not know if what I'm looking at here are good finds or not. I do apologize. I do know Dan the Automator, though, and I think that $2,700 is a hell of a price for a good Dan the Automator record. We'll finish up the hip-hop over here. Some Warren G, Regulate. Yeah, boy. Ooh, 45 King. Almost bought that one. But Queen Latifah. Man, that looks good. DJ Jazzy Jeff. Good stuff here. And here are the singles. I'll skim through these really quick, and you can take a good look at the prices. I think a good selection of 12-inch singles. When I do buy hip-hop records, I am usually more interested in the 12-inch singles because I'm a remix and single person. Not single person. I'm in a relationship. I like singles. Anyway, moving on. We got jazz. Now, I have talked a lot about music genres I don't know a lot about, and I think I am done being able to do that. So I'm just going to show off the jazz section here. Y'all can take a good look, and I will play some YouTube library jazz as we look through Sonny Rollins and other expensive jazz records. See you in a few minutes. Enjoy. And I'm back. I hope you liked that. Anyway, one thing I wanted to point out, the tail end of jazz is where they stick the ambient music for some reason, which I thought was a little bit strange. So if you're looking for that, it's over there. That's a great album, that Michael Honing album. I love that record. And then behind that is Avant-Garde, which is kind of like a catch-all for stuff they just don't know where to put. It's pretty random. Then next to that, easy listening. And then now in the world music section, again, an area I don't know too terribly much about. So let's have some world music play while I skim through these really quick. Now we're in an area I know a lot about, soundtracks. Streets of Fire soundtrack, Japanese pressing, 770 yen, buy it. Anyway, soundtrack sections in Japan can be fantastic, especially if you like genre film. As you can see here from me skimming through here, you'll find Japanese pressings of John Carpenter records, rare soundtracks to 80s movies like Rambo, that really cool Return of the Jedi story record, all kinds of amazing stuff. You can find American pressings, European pressings, Japanese pressings, and a lot of times movies get different covered. The soundtracks will get different covers in different territories. And so if you're looking for something like Streets of Fire, for example, the Japanese cover is drastically different than the North American and European ones. So it's cool to get that for variety. I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. Great soundtrack. Buy that one. And here's a really weird one, Inner Space. I really don't know what that is, but it's a cool cover. Space Camp with the Obi. I saw that movie in the theaters. Caligula. Interesting stuff up here. And then if you can see at the top there, we got, after this Bernard Herrmann album, which is really interesting and cheap, first pressing of Halloween, 28,000 yen. That's always pricey. Around the corner, we have soundtracks for game music. Tower Records doesn't have a lot of video game music. This is actually a lot for them. Seeing a Konami Game Music Volume 1, pretty rare. I go to other places for game music. I'll do a video on that store later. Good but small selection of used anime soundtracks. And then behind that, we have the Japanese movie soundtracks. They keep the Japanese movies and the Japanese anime in a different section. Now we are in J-pop, and this is becoming a bigger and bigger section, I think, for tourists. When I first came here, the only bands people really cared about were like YMO, like I'm looking through now, and a few other ones. But as city pop and Japanese 80s music gets more and more popular, I feel like this section continues to expand. Here's some, what's her name? Utada Hikaru. And this section continues to expand, and the number of non-Japanese people I see in this section continues to expand, and it becomes more and more difficult for me to show you the prices for Ohashi Junko albums because, one, they're not there anymore, and two, this area is always packed full of people. This is the emptiest I've seen it in a long time, so I thought I'd take a look. And just like a lot of other sections, they do separate artist albums by their individual placard. These are a bunch of Seiko albums, and there's different versions, so you can see that they have them separated by album title. That makes it a little easier to find. Moving on to some more J-pop down over here. What else do we have? We have some J-Club. Yeah, they have the J-pop subgenres here. So you have J-Club, J-Hip-Hop, J-Metal. You know what you won't find under J-Metal? You will not find X-Japan. X-Japan is not here. I have never seen an X-Japan record or Tower Records, ever. And here's some J-Punk and New Wave. Not an area I know a lot about, but worth a look at. Moving over to another area, here are some artists I do know. Let's look at YMO. Well, YMO-related artists. Here's Hosono Hiromi. I think in America, probably the most famous right now of the members from YMO. They have a lot of his records here. Well, a few of his records here. They have his Xevious video game music record. That's a dope record. And then some other ones here from later in his career. I love that record. That's like a drum and bass record. Here's Takahashi Yukihiro, my favorite member from YMO, and that's my favorite album of his, Wild and Moody. Maybe after Murder by Music. And here's Sakamoto Ichi. Sakamoto Ichi, they don't have a lot of right now, but that seems to ebb and flow. Sometimes they have quite a bit. Then over here, the 7-inch section, I'm not a big singles purchaser, but I just wanted to show that they have a J-pop 7-inch section with quite a few records, usually pretty fairly priced, and they also have a 7-inch section for Western music. And it's not as divided as the other section. It's just rock, and it's all mixed together. So you have your Supertramp mixed with your Ringo Starr, mixed with your Elton John, mixed with your band. There's no prog, there's no metal. I don't think there might be metal, but there's no, placards for individual subgenres of rock music here. It's all just put together like this. And then down here you also have the section for the soul and groove. Not as many 7-inches there, and you can see the prices vary, but I think they're fairly priced. I wanted to point out one cool one. Here's the anime 7-inch sections. You want some anime on 7-inch vinyl? They got you covered. I don't know any of these shows, so if you know what they are and if they're worth picking up, let me know in the comments. Hey, Doraemon, I know him. So all of that I just showed you was only half of this floor. This is the other half. This is the new vinyl half. So everything you're going to see from this point forward is new vinyl, no more used stuff. Now, I don't go here very often because I don't buy a lot of new vinyl these days, and when I do, I usually pick it up at Disc Union because the stuff I like, I can find it there, and it's a smaller store closer to my home, and I'm supporting a smaller business. But there's a lot of good stuff here, and I thought I'd come through here and kind of give you a quick look, and also show you the prices. So I have lived in Japan for 11 years now. I don't know how much new vinyl costs in America anymore. Like I said, I don't live there. I can go on Amazon and look, but that's not going to be the same as going to a record store. So I wanted to show some of the prices here because while the selection here is great, and you should buy what you want to buy when you come here, if you're visiting from overseas and you see something you can't find at your local store, you know, it's better to buy it at Tower Records in Japan than buy it on Amazon or whatever. But these are expensive. You know, they can be. Here are some, you know, Cyndi Lauper. That's 5,000 yen. That's about $45 for a record. Again, that's a lot of money. So you should know coming here that you're not going to get a deal. That's not to say it's not a fair price. It's a fair price. It's just an import price. So keep that in mind when you come here. But you might find stuff here you don't see anywhere else. I mean, how many record stores in America or whatever country you might be from carry Jethro Tull vinyl? But here's an example of prices. Here's Jay Mascis' album, 3,590 yen. That's a domestic price. Here's the Japanese pressing. It's 4,800 yen. And it's the same color, I'm pretty sure, and no bonus tracks. So you're only paying that premium for the obi strip. So keep that in mind when you're here too. Sometimes Japanese versions have extra tracks, sometimes they don't. Just browsing through some other stuff here. Here's some Nirvana. Again, pretty pricey. 7,000 yen for the deluxe edition, 4,000 for the regular. Hey, do you like Taylor Swift? They do. There's tons of it. I didn't look through this. You can all, you know, do that for yourself. I'm looking for Tangerine Dream. Here we go. This is why you go to a record store in Japan, right? To see the deluxe reissue of the 3 O'Clock High soundtrack, which is dope, by the way, and you should listen to. Not enough Tangerine Dream here. I was sad. So let's look at some more comparisons of prices. Here's the Japanese pressing and the regular pressing. Japanese pressing of Stereolabs and Margarine Eclipse, 5,990 yen. US pressing, 5,690. So in that case, almost the same. Now over to J-pop. The new J-pop section is not as expensive as the used one. It's just both sides of this little island here. But it has a lot of the major artists you like Sakamoto, Taiko Inuki, and then other big, I guess in quotes, big city pop artists that have become more popular as of recent years. Pretty substantial selection of new stuff here, and stuff like Radwimps. I love that they have like that Pacific Breeze thing, because that is supposed to be US and Europe only, not available in Japan, but they still have it. Here's the J-rap and J-hip-hop, not too much here, and again, not really my thing. Again though, more nujabes, they know what the tourists are looking for, and they stock it accordingly. So if you didn't see it on the first floor or in the other sections in the store, they got you covered here. Then some J-reggae, let's move along, and here's a big Ghibli section with each movie getting its own section, because most Studio Ghibli films have multiple releases. Sometimes these are like story records, sometimes they're soundtracks. I don't know the difference of all of them. You can look them up yourself and see for sure. I do have all the Totoro albums, and they are all actual soundtracks, I believe, or like arrangements of music from the film. No narration or anything. Love me some Cat Bus. That's a great cover. Some of these have download codes, I believe, but I don't know which ones. At least the ones I bought several years ago had download codes. That might have changed since then. But again, they have all kinds of Ghibli stuff, no matter what you're looking for. If it's available on vinyl, they'll have it here. More anime and game music. Not the biggest selection here. I was a little disappointed, to be honest. I wish they had more game music, and I wish they separated the game music from the anime, because as you can see, Most of this is anime, including everyone's favorite anime, Disney. Remember, in Japanese, anime just means animation, so stuff like Disney is going to be in the anime section. Nintendo, only one Nintendo record, that brand new Mario World release. You can get that online anywhere. Some good Ghost in the Shell, and then behind that, the Square Enix section, which you'll usually find in most stores. If you're looking for game and music soundtracks, look for the Square Enix logos. That's where they use. That makes it easy to find them. That Modulation album's good. That's like a chiptune rearrangement album of Final Fantasy music. I really dig that one. Big display for some more big anime, very tourist-friendly, Evangelion, Furikuri, Cowboy Bebop. They're displaying this stuff for the Westerners. Let's be real here. Over here is the Japanese electronic and ambient. Good selection of stuff there, although not really my cup of tea. And then next to that, more artists I know in Japanese electronics like Towatai. Love me some Towatai. I saw him live back when I believe he was part of Takahashi Yukihiro's Meta 5 project. That was great. Mondo Grosso, a lot of good Japanese electronic music. Japanese electronic music is great. Check it out sometime. Just browse through it. Here's some more regular non-Japanese electronic music. Boards of Canada, about 5,000 yen. Good prices. Pretty decent selection of electronic music here. I was surprised that it goes so deep. Lots of big artists like Moby Massive Attack and smaller ones too. Moving over now, we're going to check out jazz and some other genres that honestly, I don't know much about. So we're going to let the YouTube music library do its thing, and I'm going to chime in when appropriate. So enjoy, and if you're looking for any jazz artists or anything, freeze frame, and you can see if they have what you're looking for. Hey, I'm back. 7,000 yen for Mariah Carey's Emancipation of Mimi seems pricey. That is not the 5 LP version. That is the regular 2 LP version. That's more than double the price you might get in the States. Let's look at some Prince records here. So here we have some Japanese exclusives. They're not that exclusive. They're just the, the European and American pressings, but with an OB. They still are purple though, and according to the sleeve, highly collectible. 5,800 yen, not a bad price, I would say, for these. Here's a crystal clear one. I think that was 7,000 yen. Again, they are identical to the non-Japanese pressings. They just have that extra obi strip. I usually get my prints from the exclusive store, from the web store that he has. You can get exclusive variants there. I would check that out if you have time. Moving on from Prince, we have some Sign of Family Stone. Again, he had just passed away when I recorded this. I believe that 5,490 yen is more than you'll pay for that in the States or in Europe. Let's look at soundtracks. It's more my thing. Good prices here, I think, for the most part, and a good selection of new releases of old movies on new releases of old soundtracks. I buy some soundtracks here on occasion. Here's a nice one of the Warriors, although I have every verse of the Warriors you can imagine. Here's world music, Brazil, all kinds of, hey Shakira, lots of releases here. I'm gonna let the music play for a bit so you can look through this without me babbling on. And we are almost done with the vinyl floor, I swear. Here's the 7-inch section. I think this is mostly Western music with some Japanese. It's about 50-50. And then along this wall here is some featured stuff. I wanted to showcase this because it has some good Ryuichi Sakamoto new releases on vinyl here that I really recommend. I really thought his last album was fantastic. And this record here, the Alpha Yen Records compilation, that is indeed the ultimate Japanese technopop album. If you like Yellow Magic Orchestra or Hosono Hiromi's electronic music, check that record out. But again, this wall, as you can tell, is again very much tailored for the tourists coming here, as was this section here celebrating the 50th anniversary of Tatsuya Yamashita's releases. Another section here for him and related artists. They really want tourists to buy Tatsuya Yamashita. Hey, have you heard of Tatsuya Yamashita? You know City Pop? He did that. Anyway, let's look at tapes. There is a small tape section here. I thought this was crazy. So these are expensive. You have a lot of new release tapes here going for prices that I would not buy. As you can see, look at this Bjork ones. You have some Bjork ones here for 6,000 yen. 3,000 yen's a little bit better, but it's a tape. They're not going to sound good. If you want to collect tapes, knock yourself out. But I think these prices are a little insane. The used prices are also crazy. Check out, here's the soundtrack to Jason's Lyric. 2,200 yen. What? What? Boomerang. 1,430 yen. What? Why? The soundtrack, the MC Scat Cat. MC Scat Cat, 1,300 yen. That's funny, but it's not 1,300 yen funny. I found a lot of these prices to be just really outrageous. I don't know what's going on here. There must be a market for the Funky Headhunter for 2,750 yen, but it's not me. I mean, you're talking to a guy. I recently did a whole video on my video game soundtracks on tape. Those cost a lot of money, and I'm not going to judge you. If you want to spend 1,500 yen on a Salt and Pepper tape, or if you want to buy Graffiti Bridge for almost 5,000 yen, knock yourself out. But I think you could probably find a better deal for almost all of these online. Again, that's not really, I don't want to knock the store too much. They are obviously charging what people will pay, and these are probably a bit harder to find in Japan. So if you're a local like me, then you might not have a choice. But if you're a tourist visiting the country to buy music, don't come to Tower Records and spend almost 3,000 yen on a Hall & Oates tape. I think you can use that money to buy something harder to find at a price that might be better for a tourist. And if you do buy tapes, don't buy these boom boxes. Now, I'm not going to judge the tape prices or the prices on these, but I'll judge the quality on these. These are new boom boxes. New boom boxes and new tape players all sound like garbage. They all use the same tape mechanism or a similar mechanism, and it's just the quality's not there. If you do want to collect tapes, do yourself a favor, do your ears a favor, buy a vintage deck. It's going to sound a lot better. They have some posters here too. I'll just skim these a bit. These were very expensive, but I think fairly so, because I have to imagine that these kind of posters are incredibly rare and hard to find. They had some storage options. These aren't, I think this is less for tourists and more for people like me who live in the country, because why buy this stuff here if you don't live here? Good selection of needles though. They had some high-end Nagaoka needles at this wall, and some other brands too. I usually get my styluses, whatever, from the electronics store, the camera store, but good selection of that and cleaning supplies. So they got your turntables here. These are pretty bad. Don't buy an Ion. It's bad for your records. They'll sound bad. Now that's a good Audio Technica. These are good mid-price turntables. Again, if you're a tourist, though, don't buy them here. You buy them in America or whatever country you're from. Save yourself some money. And these are the high-end Technics. Now, these, I don't know how easy these are to find in America or other countries, so you might be better off buying them here, maybe. These are the listening stations. As you can see, they use Technics. They know what's up. And they have these great Tower Records needles, which you can buy over by the front desk at the Ortofon stylus section. These are all the Ortofon needles. Those are more DJ needles, but they're really good. I used to use those on my home system. I moved up from that a while ago, but those Ortofon DJ needles are great. And they also have some Soundburger record players, which are fantastic record players. Now, this section is gone. This was here. This kind of comes and goes. This is the used vintage t-shirt section. These are expensive. I'll just show you one. What do we got here? Here's Def Leppard I don't know what tour that is, but this t-shirt costs you almost 10,000 yen. And I am 6.5 feet tall and not skinny. Those won't fit me, so I'm just going to move along. So we're finally done with the vinyl floor. We are now on the 5th floor, as the Giant 5 will tell you. This is the K-pop and event venue floor. The event venues are not just K-pop, it's other stuff, and that's that walled-off section. If they have a signing or a performance by a local idol or smaller idol group, it might be there. So I know nothing about K-pop, and I want to keep this video positive, so I'm not going to just slag on people who want to buy this stuff. I just will say this floor is the busiest floor of the store. So while I am not a fan of K-pop, the genre is doing its best to help keep Tower Records open and profitable. So I'll be happy. I'm happy with it. You all buy your K-pop. You all stay on this floor away from my music, and we can all coexist in harmony. The one thing I learned from this visit today was that K-pop is separated by gender. There is boys K-pop, and then in another section, there is girls K-pop. Those are your two K-pop genres, apparently, boys and girls. But I know nothing about this stuff. I hope that was informative. Let's move on to the 4th floor. There's more that I know down here. The 4th floor is kind of a catch-all. I like to call it the nerd floor. It's the otaku floor. It's anime, game music, Vocaloid, VTubers, and idols. So it's basically a lot of, anime and anime-related music and kind of nerdier, less mainstream Japanese music. We'll find more Japanese music on another floor in a minute. But as you can see here, a lot of anime. To be honest, while I live in Japan, I'm not a big anime guy. I think the last anime I watched to completion was Furikuri, so this is not my area either, but I do come, and don't ask me anything about VTubers. I am a YouTuber, but just barely. So I really don't know much about the Japanese VTuber world. What I come down to this floor for primarily is game music, because they have a ton of it. You can see here's an entire section dedicated to music from the various Final Fantasy games. I'm not a big Final Fantasy guy, but I do buy the CDs sometimes, especially the remix CDs. I really enjoy these. I don't know why. I have an alarming number of albums from Chochobo themed games. I don't know why. But anyway, yes, tons of Final Fantasy. Now, this is a good floor to come to if you're a tourist, because I'm going to imagine there is no place in America, no place in Europe, no place in other countries that has this big a selection of new video game music on CD. So if that is your thing, then this is definitely a floor you should visit. And it's more than just Square Enix. Here's a big Nintendo section. You got Mario, there's Splatoon, there's Zelda you'll see in a minute. All kinds of video game music. Dragon Quest, Xenogears. Yeah, a lot of it's Square Enix. But they do have other companies here represented. Some Persona, there's Pokemon and Mother. Next to that, Ridge Racer. That's a great record. I love that record. That's on my workout playlist. Oh, and then, like I said, Pokemon, more Persona. Here's more Nintendo. The super huge versions of the latest Zelda soundtracks. That 19,000 yen version's awesome. It's in a giant box and it has a USB stick that I think is shaped like the Master Sword. It's pretty cool. And then they actually have some manga here and then some anime soundtracks. As you can tell also, this area is catered for tourists. I'm going to give you a tip. If you're in an anime section in a store in Japan and it has Cowboy Bebop there, it's for tourists, because most Japanese people don't care about Cowboy Bebop anymore. They do care about Ghibli though. Everybody likes Ghibli. So if you missed the Ghibli on the previous floor, hey, guess what? They have some here, and they also have it on CD, and the movies as well. And then here's some more, I think these are anime singer albums. So some singers like Lisa, they're known for their anime soundtracks, and you can find their albums over in this section here. As you can see, it's a very busy section. This wasn't as busy as the K-pop floor, but it was pretty close. Hey, Hatsune Miku. Yes, they have a Vocaloid section. The only Vocaloid I know is Hatsune Miku because Hatsune Miku is for everyone. Here's some more anime. Lots of anime on this floor, and again, it's not my area, but I can tell it's diverse and they have a lot, and they are very, Western tourist minded here. If it's even a remotely popular anime in Western countries, they will have an English title and Chinese and Korean for that matter. So the tourists can find it easily, which I think is, nice of them, and it makes it easier for them to get money. So this that it says idol. This is the idol section. Idols are like the AKB48s, the kind of the very cheesy, in my opinion, Japanese pop music that kind of tailors for the nerd or otaku crowd. That's all on this floor. Most of that is not on the main Japanese floor. I mean, over here is the AKB48 and other 46s section, all the different idols here, and I think WAC is a quote-unquote underground idol. That's a little more interesting, but if you're looking for a bunch of girls in uniforms dancing and singing at the same time while being heavily auto-tuned, this section's for you. It's not for me. So we're gonna move on down here. And then finally we have I don't know what to call this section now. These are I'm just gonna call them boy bands. And the less I say about this area, the better. Let's move on. We are now moving on to the third floor. This is the J-pop floor. J-pop, J-indie, J-pop, City Pop, Visual K, Kids, Showa Air, and various other Japanese genres and subgenres. Really good floor. This is really CD focused, as you can tell. And if you have any interest in Japanese music, new or old, this is a must-visit floor. This has to be the largest selection of new Japanese releases in the world at this point. I mean, everything else is closed. As you can see here, tons of new releases that get their own listening stations and featured displays. So if you don't know much about Japanese music and you're curious about some of this stuff, it's also a great place to visit and just give stuff a listen, see what you like. I need to get more into Japanese music. I've been here, a long time now. These are Showa idols. So that's what that says. Showa idol. So that's people like Seiko and other Japanese idols from the 80s. Again, Tatsuya Yamashita. You like that city pop? Tower Records hopes you do. And here is the city pop on CD section. I think this is the biggest area devoted just to quote-unquote city pop. Most recommend Ohashi Junko, you see down there. Very cool. And then next to that, more city pop and Showa era music. They're trying really hard. And Cassiopeia, they're trying really hard to get that tourist dollar. And I can't blame them. And it's convenient. If you like, Anuki Taiko, it's great to come here and see all that stuff all kind of bunched together so you can start with something like her, and then move on to something else. And then if you want to, you can buy some Japanese reggae. Anyways, I'm going to set up for a little bit and let you just look at the store. I'll chime back in when appropriate. Wait a second, who's it over here? Oh, it's that Plastic Love. We got Takeuchi Maria. I told you they're aiming for the tourists, and that's a good one to put on the top shelf. People will find it, but that's not really my thing. I'm a big fan of Takahashi Yukihiro, though. More on him in a second. Down here, I also wanted to point out Hajime Tachibana. He was a great Japanese musician who did a lot of good stuff for YMO's record label, Yen Records, in the 80s. But I love Yukio Takahashi. He died a few years ago. He was in YMO, aka Yellow Magic Orchestra, and I'm happy to see that Tower Records is keeping his legacy going with all kinds of great CDs by him. Pretty much everything I'm skimming through here is good stuff. That album there, Murdered by the Music, that's probably my favorite Japanese synth pop record. That album is a masterpiece. But everything here is great. And when you're in Tower Records or any other store in Japan, this is the kind of stuff you should be looking at, because you're not going to find it really anywhere else, I would say, for the most part, and at least unless you go online and go to eBay or Discogs or something. I did not know they had used CDs here. So these are 3-inch CDs by Yukio Takahashi. I bought those. But moving on to Yellow Magic Orchestra, if you're in Japan and you want to buy some YMO, buy that record. That is UCYMO. That is the Ultimate Greatest Hits Collection. That's a fantastic compilation. And then you want to get Solid State Survivor, the self-titled, then BGM, and Public Pressure. Pretty much everything they got up there, those are must-haves. Some good selection down here, too. They have a copy of the EXO Multiples. That's okay. After Service is a decent live album, but there's a better version of that, which I'll get to in a minute. Service is the studio record that they toured for. That's the last live album from 2012, I believe. But this album here used Complete Service. That's the entire concert, and I believe it was remixed by Brian Eno. 3,740 yen. Oops, that's a good deal for that. That is definitely 3,000 yen, even cheaper, worth buying. That's out of print and a fantastic show. There's Sketch Show. That's another Yellow Magic Orchestra side project. And over here we have Sakamoto Ryuichi. Of course, he's probably the most famous member of Yellow Magic Orchestra. He died a couple years ago. I'm glad to see also they're keeping his legacy alive by having a massive selection of his music. And then down over here is Hosono Hiromi, sadly the last surviving core member of Yellow Magic Orchestra. A lot of his stuff too. Happy to see that also. Moving away from Technopop and YMO, there are some other notable bands here. Really quick, look at some X Japan. If you want to buy X Japan new, you're going to have to buy it on CD because all their vinyl is still out of print and it goes for a fortune online. Over here we got some more of that city pop, some Junko Ohashi and such. Again, putting that stuff on top for all of the tourists here who are definitely visiting to buy more city pop. There is a good selection of videos if you want to get some Blu-rays, and Blu-rays from Japan are the same region as America, so if you're American, that should be fine. And it's that these days it's pretty easy to get an all-region player, right? And hey, do you want some more Yamashita Tatsuro? Because guess what? They got it right by the cafeteria, so you don't miss it. They really want you to buy him. Even more over here, just to get an idea what they're going for these days. It was not like this a year ago. They're really pushing the city pop sound now at Tower Records, and good on them, I guess, if it's paying the rent. See some prices here, 2,400 yen for a new CD. I don't think that's too unfair a price. That's probably cheaper than you have to get imported online. Over here we got some other big bands. Here's One Ok Rock. That's how that's pronounced, by the way, One Ok Rock. It's a Japanese pun. It's not a good Japanese pun. Most Japanese puns are bad. But here's the Japanese edition of the album here. That is 2,000 yen. 3,000 yen, I'm sorry. Not unfair price, and an older one for 3,300 yen. Again, decent prices for new music. Here's some Yuming, who I've seen live in Japan twice. My boyfriend is a huge fan. She's kind of an 80s sound. I know her husband worked on a lot of city pop, and here's a ton of Yuming used CDs. Again, I didn't know they were selling used CDs on the J-pop floor like this. Good prices on these too. 1,100 yen for a used CD is good, and they got the 3-inch singles. Just remember, if you buy 3-inch singles, make sure your CD player can play them. You want to have the kind like a top loader. If you have any that kind of insert in the front, it might eat it. And finally, here are some other smaller genres. First, there's the kind of the various artists, compilations in Japan. They call them omnibuses. Again, mostly city pop, but some other stuff here too. I think a few of those are Tower Records exclusives. And here's Enka. Enka is, I guess, Japanese folk music. It's what your grandmother listens to in Japan. Wait for the good cover. There's a good one coming. There you go. Yeah. Anyway, Inca's an odd genre. Moving on over here, we have Visual K. This is like X Japan. It's like, really glammed up, super made up rock music. I haven't listened to any Visual K in forever. I don't know the state of the genre, but they have a good selection over here and listening stations if you are curious. And we're almost done because while there is one more floor here, the second floor, which has the Tower Records Cafe and Tower Shibuya Space, there wasn't much here today when I filmed. And I went back to another day and there still wasn't much. There was just this little promo for this anime here, and then a big empty hallway, and then the space, which is a pop-up store that has varying temporary stores. And this is one for an anime I had not heard of. I didn't want to go in there and film because I had no customers, and I felt kind of bad. And here's the cafe. It was closed. It's closed a lot. That's too bad, because before the pandemic, it was open quite a bit, and I liked the food. I went there 3 times to make this video. Each time it was closed. But anyway, we're sorry to wrap up on kind of an anticlimactic note as we go back down to the first floor. But thanks for watching this maybe needlessly long video about Tower Records. I don't know. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this video, be sure to click those like and subscribe buttons. I do a lot of videos about things I find in Japan, records, movies, sometimes games, even a lot of video game music related stuff, but other genres too, so check that out. And also I have a series on here called Ranking Every Movie, where I am going through via Letterboxd and ranking every single movie I've ever seen. And if you like hearing me talk about movies, check out my movie podcast, Cinema Oblivia. You can find that on most podcast platforms except Spotify, because I draw a line somewhere. But again, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be back again with another video sometime relatively soon, I hope. Until then, take care.